Okay, it's Libra time. I did a whole video on this earlier and I wasn't feeling so good. Did the write up for it, and now I feel like there's more of a focus or concentration on how to talk about Libra. And where I found the inspiration really was actually seeing the flip side, opposition on the other end of the sky and the other end of the chart. Because right now, yesterday was a full moon for 2018. When we enter into Libra, the full moon isn't always at the very beginning of the month. But there was a lot of Aries energy, and right now in the sky there's a lot of Mars energy. And I think this helped give clarity to the Libra energy, and it's seeking for harmony. So the way that we're going to talk about this is we're going to talk about the undercurrents of Libra and its main aspect as relating to harmony, and what this looks like outside of this sort of vague, like, oh, Libra, it's harmony, it's balance. Like, what does this mean? So let's go and let's look at the chart. And I'm going to go on a quick rant here. Most people, when they look at Libra in relationship to relationships, and they look at Libra, particularly in romantic relationships, or other relationships and partnerships. And that's true in a point. But a romantic relationship in particular, and same with other relationships, to a lesser extent, a romantic relationship has a lot more involvement from multiple signs. For instance, we'll go through real quick, like Taurus and Venus can affect our aesthetic appeal, right? Like, what do we find beautiful, right? Which is oftentimes when you're like just walking around and you're meeting people, that's going to be one of the first impressions, right? Gemini will talk about our communication styles with people, right? Which is essential for a romantic relationship or any communication or any relationship. Cancer is going to relate to our childhood and our past and the models that we had for what a healthy relationship looks like or what an unhealthy relationship looks like, right? And oftentimes these play into our relationships. Leo is like the kind of fun that we have. Leo in the fifth house, the kind of fun, the way that we express ourselves, the mutual hobbies we have, which oftentimes play into partnerships and relationships. Virgo is the way that we can serve, right? Like, when your partner first gets sick, are you going to help take care of them? And how does that affect your relationship or the person's decision to remain in a romantic relationship with you? Then we have Libra, which is about the balancing and the harmony and being able to hold space for two different people, two different lives, two different egos to be in one harmonious relation to each other. And that's where Virgo comes in. And Scorpio, you then have all the unconscious things that are happening in that powerful unconscious experience and the sex of everything. Like, relationships tend to play in almost every area of the chart, right? At some point or some level, whether it's the unconscious conditioning, it's our form of communication, it's the things that bind us and keep us together. The chart has room, or the chart plays into each relationship. So why I'm sharing this, why I went on this rant, is that Libra and Venus are about a lot more than relationships, right? Libra is ruled by the sign of Venus. Venus energy is about bringing things together. It's about delighting in things. It's about connecting things. If you look at the Orphic hymns for Venus, they're very pantheistic about Venus, right? They see her as this underlying connection of all things. And you see that about love deities the world over. Like, this is how nature happens. Like, okay, there's a guy right now letting out, let's do it so you can actually see it, letting out a whole bunch of ducks in the rice paddies outside the place that I'm staying. Like, all those ducks came from Venus. They came from the duality of Venus energy, bringing things together, and the Aries energy. They came from the duality of the Aries energy being like, I want that one, right? And the sexual act that comes from that, and in that merging you then have that Venus energy, right? So these energies of Libra and Aries aren't actually opposed. They, in a healthy way, they work together. And by working together, the cosmos exists, right? By these individual components doing what they are meant to do, or doing what they do most naturally, it creates its own harmony. Just like in a chorus, you have different singers singing their song, and it creates a greater harmony. It creates a greater song, a greater piece. The difficulty is when different components of the system, of the larger system, don't act according to their true nature, right? And that's where things butt heads. And that's where Aries looks very different than Libra. And Libra has its shadow side, and Aries then has its shadow side. But we're kind of getting ahead. I want to go through the developmental process that brings us to the way that I am called to encourage people to work with Libra, right? All the signs have a ton of different ways to work with them. Libra could very much be about couples counseling. It could very much be about counseling on family dynamics. It could very much be about like how to make the most harmonious, pleasant home and space and feng shui. The way that I'm choosing and the way that I feel called for me and my energy to put into the universe as my part to play in the harmony is to be a voice to call us into working with Libra in relationship to us walking a harmonious path with existence, right? Whether that be universe and cosmos and the divine, or that be, if we want to take a more atheistic approach, like our unique neural pattern and conditioning, finding meaning in a greater picture of systems and the ways that systems operate and interact with each other, right? And finding a harmonious way to live in relationship to nature, our community, our society, and the systems that we find ourselves in. And if we want to take a spiritual look at that and lens at that, then that is then spiritualized, right? That meaning aspect of things, right? There is a frequency or power or a consciousness behind all of that. So we start the year off here. We're going to do the cycle of the year, which we've been doing, and we started in March. Start the year off with Aries, that spark of life, that burst of life from the winter months, right? Where you've, in the northern hemisphere, where you have the first shoots, the first springs, they're bursting up from the ground, right? And there's that spark of life with it, which is then given a vessel in Taurus, right? That first lurch for the sun and for that desperateness really to live, to grow, to thrive is sort of given a little bit more form and structure in the earthy nature of Taurus. And that's where you see flowers opening up, which are then germinated in Gemini. And the way that we looked at this for the spring months in personal development is you have your passion, you have your drive, you have your energy, which is then given form in your body. So we need to be able to take care of our bodies and perform self-care and also be in our bodies, right? We worked a lot on breaking out of disassociation states and making sure that we're present in our bodies. And then we are then using these bodies with all the senses that come to it to now gather new information in Gemini, share that information, and exchange stories. So we're cross-pollinating. So we worked a lot with like the power of word to change our minds, right? The power of word to change our relationships to things, to tell new stories, to change our stories. And then from this process and what gets cross-pollinated here, we now have the germination cycle in Cancer. Something is brewing, something is coming alive within us. And so we worked a lot more on other forms of self-care and emotional self-care and aligning with what are we here to birth into this world. And then once we birth it, we've got the child Leo, which is both the child and the king, because all these signs have their different dualities. And we talked about how Leo is really about finding our own mission, right? That divine spark and the narrative that we are meant to live, which can be somewhat maddening in the modern age, where whether it's the divine spark that you're looking for, or it's like, okay, this is my particular neurological arrangement, right? Like me, I have some bipolar tendencies, right? So my particular neurological arrangement, which I see as part of my divine spark, but it could be, it doesn't have to be spiritual like that, has a unique way. It has a unique view. It has a unique way of fitting into the world. It has a unique way of finding meaning. It has a unique way of sharing that meaning. And through this way, it sometimes butts heads with the world around, which creates a lot of madness, right? It can lead into addiction. It can lead into mental health challenges when the stress piles up. And so we kind of talked about how in this particular day and age, that fiery element that's really calling us to be who we're meant to be can be very difficult. When society doesn't hold space for that, and it's far more cookie cutter, right? Especially in, well, I think depending on the tradition, this could maybe always have been the case. Either we have regimental traditions, which is like, no, this is how you should live your life, or we have now this economic tradition of this is capitalism, this is how you live your life. It's pretty much based out of the Industrial Revolution a couple hundred years ago, right? And it's still dictating the way that we do things, your 9 to 5 and what you're expected to do. So that can be very difficult. And so we talked about how Virgo can help us clean that up, right? So you have this kind of mad flair in Leo where it's like, just love me. I'm here to do this work, and like, I need to be supported, and like, it's all so difficult right now, and I'm going to have a little crazy streak, and people have a little extra energy because it's summer and there's all this madness afoot. And then Virgo starts to clean up the mess, right? And she's like, okay, we saw the vision. We know which direction you're meant to go in. Let's cut the excesses. Let's make space, make time, and really develop our task list and get these things done actually in a practical manner that can move forward. And while we're doing that, the thing that we worked on most in Virgo is how do you use that divine spark, right? How do you use that sense of self or that sense of cosmic self to bring meaning into the world, right? What is your own personal mythos? What is your own personal story that brings meaning into these different acts, these different tasks, these different ways of relating to life and to the world around? And we talked a lot about the priest and priestess archetype. And then in Libra, now we have more of that sense of relationship, right? Virgo was like, okay, so I'm seeing some signs, I'm putting some pieces together. I know there's something out there, whether it be a cosmic force, whether it be the spiritual force, whether it just be a existential reason for why we believe ourselves to be here, right? A philosophical reason for why we believe ourselves to be here. And I think it's very funny because when I was in Virgo, it's very much like, yes, this cosmos and this relationship back and forth. And now Libra is like, okay, but there's all these different perspectives. So let's speak to everybody here. Let's speak to the people who's like, it's the pantheist way, and speak to the people it's the monotheistic way. Those people that don't want to have a spiritual aspect to it, let's talk to them about meaning and about neurology in that way. And you're unique, and you have to be able to find your own place in all these dynamic systems, right? Virgo is a lot more like, let's just like get this message out there. Libra is a lot more, it's the air sign, and it wants to balance all the different perspectives and hold harmony for it. And so this is where we come into relationship, right? Virgo was like the service of the priest archetype. In Libra, we now are building a relationship to that larger story, right? Whether it be a philosophical story, and so what is my role in this world, and how do I fulfill that in an ethical means, or it be a divine calling, and how do you hold relationship to that aspect of the divine or to that cosmos? So they're very closely related in that way, at least in the way that I'm choosing to give the call to work with it, right? Like, this is on every level, right? Libra it could be used for the balancing and the harmony of your workspace. It could be used for the balancing and harmony of your home space, of your relationships, of friendships, of your relationship to the environment, which is a huge deal, of your relationship to the divine, of your relationship within yourself, right? It's simply about taking different pieces and having a harmony amongst them, right? Making sure that they work together. A huge concept from the Middle Ages was the harmony of the spheres. Actually, it goes a lot older than the Middle Ages, but that all the stars and the planets, they're in this dance. Like, there's harmony and there's order in the cosmos. And when you look at the older traditions, every single one of them had this aspect of there being this necessity for harmony, right? Egypt had Mayat, Sumerians had the Mies, Greece had Thetis, the Hindu had Rata, the Buddhists have Dharma, the Taoists have the Tao, and Judaism, it's the divinity, it's Hashem, but then there's also the calling to serve Hashem through mitzvot so that we can bring about greater order. And that's the part that relates to Aries that we're going to dive in here. In a second, I want to just bring the last one out, which would be Yeshua, the Christ figure in Christianity, or Jesus in Christianity, who holds this position of balancing, right? When tempted by Hasatan, like, holds his own, isn't very active, is calm, is cool, is collected. When gathered up by the Romans for persecution, is calm, is cool, and collected. When challenged by the legalistic religious community, holds his ground, doesn't back down, but isn't to it. He doesn't go out and attack either. And when seeing truly inharmonious relations, like the money exchangers in a temple that is using greed in a space that's meant to be used for spiritual harmony and connection, gets really angry and starts whipping people and pushing them out of the temple, right? So in the older traditions, there's typically this deity, or there's this force that arises from the chaos, or is called forth from the chaos through a creative deity. And you see this in the more mystical texts of John, where Yeshua, Jesus, is referred to as the Logos, which in Greek traditions is an ordering principle, and in Roman traditions is an ordering principle of the universe. So the ancient traditions saw existence coming out of chaos, and then either order and harmony itself is birthed, or is self-birthing, or a creator deity births it through word, or through a sexual act, or through an act of some sort of act of creation. And this harmony, this order, this truth, as man is truth, order, harmony, then it organizes all the chaotic principles, right? Kind of think of the Big Bang. Like, in the Big Bang, like, everything's just mixed, right? And then suddenly the principles of order, of gravity, of the way that strong and weak force work and act together, the way that particles are arranged, the way that things separate from heavier to lighter in relationship to the gravity. This then starts creating planets and suns and orbits of the planets, and creates a more organized existence out of all those mixed chemicals and that rushing, powerful energy. It creates the systems of harmony, which allow for more complicated systems to arise and allow for evolution to arise. And all the old myths have this, right? They have it originating in chaos, and then something gives order to it. And then in Christianity, and Buddhism in its own way, we see model figures for that macrocosm being modeled to us in a microcosm through the stories of Yeshua, Jesus, Buddha, and also through the stories of mythology, right? Like, the old heroes from the old traditions also had that mirroring effect of microcosm, macrocosm. So how does this relate to harmony, and why am I also including Aries in this? Well, the Aries and Libra act like a yin-yang exchange, right? Aries is about our personal role, right? How do we set healthy boundaries? How do we demand the needs that we have, right? I need to eat. Like, I need, in order for me to maintain mental stability, I need to eat. I need to have, I could be a wandering ascetic, but it would not be so good for me to be a wandering ascetic and deal with all that and try to have clients, right? So if I'm going to be participating in the world, I need to have a space of my own. I need to have food. I need to have supportive people, right? Aries declares these needs, right? Aries is very much about like, what is this individual's role and space and need within this larger system? Whereas Libra is like, how do we bring all those smaller pieces together into our harmonious system? And so they act as yin and yangs. When Aries is out of balance and it's not connected to its true alignment, then it's like, I need my own island, and I need a palace, and I need all you people to serve me, and I have all these wants, and F off, if you're not going to give me what I want, I will take it, right? Like, or it could be out of balance in the fact that it's too weak, and then people roll over us, and we don't declare our needs at all, right? And the same thing actually happens on the flip side with Libra. Libra can either be overly controlling of the environment, to be like, okay, this doesn't feel harmonious, so I'm going to need you to sit over there and you to sit over there because of whatever intuition I'm feeling that this is a inharmonious environment. I need this particular music to be played at this particular time. We can all wear these particular clothes, because it's trying to find the sense of balance, a sense of harmony, and it's overly trying to control it, right? On the flip side, which people are probably much more familiar with Libra, it's self-sacrificing. And a little self-sacrifice can be useful for harmony, right? Yeshua's self-sacrifice created a new, it gave weight to a lot of his social justice, calls for social justice, right? It can be useful in some scenarios, but oftentimes we just allow people to roll over us in ways that are not useful at all, right? Out of the Libra moon. So we can constantly be creating compromises that don't serve anyone. And you'll see this a lot in relationships, and you'll see this a lot, especially in living dynamics, where you kind of like just walk on eggshells. Everyone just kind of does what they need to get by and not have there be a big argument. And so everyone's walking on eggshells, or there will be like one tyrannical or two tyrannical figures that butt heads, and everybody else is walking on eggshells around them because they have all that Aries energy or all that Scorpio energy, and they're like, this all has to be done in this way. And everyone else is like, okay, until they reach their max and they just can't compromise anymore because their own needs aren't being met. And then their own Aries steps up and they're like, F that noise. Like, and the volcano explodes, right? In true harmony, we're able to express our needs. We're able to draw the boundaries that are right for us. And we're able to recognize the needs of others and allow others to draw the boundaries that are right for them, and hold this in a space that is harmonious. And that is one of the important features of all those ancient traditions, is that humanity was seen to have a pivotal role in maintaining order and harmony. It was believed that the universe could always return to a state of chaos, right? It could always dissolve again back into that chaos. And that humanity, each individual person, had to choose to live in harmony with the world and with the gods and with nature and with everything around them, so as to promote existence's continuous harmonious existence, right? Promote the harmonious existence of existence, and that was a critical role, right? In the pyramid texts and in the scrolls of the dead, like that is why like the Egyptians, why they were weighed on the scales of Mayat and on truth, was based on whether or not did you live a harmonious life? Did you live a harmonious life in service to the gods? Did you live a harmonious life where you observed the rituals that brought about the floods and the ways of Egypt and the ways of maintaining nature? In some of the pyramid texts, it's like, did you take care of the poor? Did you take care of other people? Did you tell the truth? Or were you chaotic? Did you tell lies? Did you take advantage of other people? Were you tyrannical? And if you were not harmonious, then you essentially were dissolved, right? You were eaten by this being of oblivion. And you see that in the other traditions, right? Like in Taoism, we're called to work with the Tao. We're called to flow with the Tao. In Hinduism, you work for Rata by doing your Dharma. And in Buddhism, the kind of like Rata is already fitted away and you simply do your Dharma. You do what you're called to do in the world, which sometimes, as you see in, oh shoot, what is that epic? I don't remember the name. There's a few epics that illustrate this, but the Maga, there's a prince, and he, his charioteer ends up being Krishna, but he doesn't know it, and it's one of those things that's on the tip of my tongue, but it's not happening. But it's a teaching on Dharma, right? Like he has lost his throne. He's the rightful ruler. He's lost his throne to his cousins, who are super abusive people that are just ruining the kingdom. And so he has been called to take back the kingdom, and he gets there on the day of war, and he's like, look, those are my cousins. Like, I don't want to hurt them. Like, look at the people fighting for me. I don't want them to die. Like, look at like the good people on that side that are just like joined that side because of the fact that they have sworn loyalties to whoever's in the throne. I don't want to hurt them. Like, I don't want these bad things to happen. I don't want this pain to happen. And Krishna starts to give them a teaching on the Dharma, and it's like, for the greater harmony, for the greater good of this entire kingdom, some people need to get hurt right now, right? Like, this war has to happen. Like, they are hurting people, and they will continue to do so for far longer than this war would do so, right? And so you have these teachings throughout time. These teachings where sometimes for the greater harmony, you have to step up with some Aries energy. You have to draw clear lines. You have to put some healthy boundaries down. You have to demand what has to be done, and you have to be able to hold it. So there is this relationship between preserving harmony and being a warrior. And the in all these traditions, the way that you are the healthy warrior, right? The way that you invoke the healthy warrior is that the warrior always fights for a greater cause. The warrior always fights for the harmony. And so in all those old traditions, that's what you're doing, is you're constantly looking for creating a greater harmony, right? If you're working with them, right? If you're working in them in a good way. Humans have always been humans. And so there's never like a golden era. Well, maybe there was, but before memory, there was never a golden age of putting this all to use. But it is interesting, as I sit here in Bali, to see all the little rituals that they do at their shrines, to see all the little ways that they are calling on the local gods, the local spirits. They're working to live in relationship with nature, right? They're calling for favorable weather for their crops. They're calling for blessings on their ducks. They don't eat too much meat. They're working on not having a lot of excesses. And you see this in traditional Chinese medicine. It's all about balancing the different energies. You see this in Ayurvedic medicine. You see this in, oh Lord, another one that's escaped me. You see this in as feng shui, right? When I landed in Singapore, there was a very busy yang energy of the marketplace. And then there were always these little nooks and places with like living trees in the airport and waterfalls and butterfly gardens and nice restful places, right? And this is why I wanted to bring up in Libra, this energy of Libra and Aries, because Libra is about being able to hold those different polarities and find a way to cause them to harmonize, right? You hold the yang in space for the yang, as we said, Yeshua with casting people out of the temple who were not living in harmony with their spiritual tradition. You hold space for yen, where it allowed himself to be sacrificed because it was the time to withhold and to be in yen. And in a less extreme scenario, Buddha's death, for instance, like the legend behind Buddha's death, is that he always received whatever food was given to him. And so someone gave him pork and it had gone bad, but because of like essentially evoking his own duty, which is this mix of like the yang energy, I'm going to hold self-discipline and mastery, and then the yin energy, I'm going to surrender to that self-discipline and mastery. It said that even though he knew that the food was poison, in some legends it's purposely poison, some legends it's not. I think so. Actually, that might have been a lie. The legends. Oh no, Matt. Let's only speak the truth. Okay, the legends I am most familiar with, it is not intentionally poisoned. I think storyteller Josh right there maybe slipped in, or Libra was like, there's all sides of the coin, slipped in something else. But the legends that I have been told, it's not purposely poisoned. I'm going to leave this in there because it's good to hold to Mayat and give an example of this. Like, watch our words, watch the stories that we tell. The legends given were that it was like it had just spoiled and no one knew, right? Except for the Buddha, who was like, okay, we'll take this. And then he gets sick from it and he passes away. And you see these balancings of these different forces all throughout the old traditions. It's been really cool because, they have shrines like everywhere here, like on the street corners, in front of the houses, of course, all throughout the temples. But like I have some pictures and I'll post eventually. This morning I was walking around super early in the morning. People had created shrines on top of their cars and their bikes. I don't know entirely the reason why. I will eventually know the reason why, but there's like little offerings everywhere. And it's cool because I work a lot with a Roman tradition, and that's how the Romans were. There was believed to be a spirit that guarded everything, right? Like it was very animistic. And so the layers, like there are the layers of your house, there are the layers of your communities. There'd be offerings for harmony placed at the crossroads. There'd be offerings for harmony done at the household. There'd be offerings for harmony done for the city. There'd be offerings for harmony between the city and the wilds. There'd be offerings for harmony, right, and blessings in the wilds, in the fields, everywhere. It's how the ancient traditions worked. So as we move through this Libra phase, let's develop that mindfulness. How are we acting in harmony? And what actions need to be taken to create greater harmony? And sometimes, like I said, that can be rough, right? Sometimes it can be a little bit painful because you have to step up in certain places that we weren't stepping up before. I see this a lot with clients when clients start drawing healthy boundaries, especially the ones with like that, a lot of that Libra energy, which is just trying to make everyone else happy. They use all their energy, all their time, all their focus doing things for other people, which is great until it starts to sap them, and then they have health problems, and then they're not able to do the things they actually really need to get done. And then they're not even able to serve other people now because they are having so many difficulties. And when they start to step up and be like, no, I cannot do everything for every person, it's a little uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for them. They feel awkward. It's uncomfortable for the people who are used to being able to ask them to do everything for them. It's uncomfortable for everyone else around until people get used to it again, right? Just systems shift. They change. People readjust. More often than not, like it'll be a little bit uncomfortable, then people get used to it, and suddenly now you have a life where, okay, I'll use an illustration of one client who would continuously take care of their partner's health problems. And we're not talking about like they're like on their deathbed and like that's its own thing, right? Like if they really, 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 really need someone else to nurse them, like this person would be there. But it was minor things, right? Like, oh, what kind of shoes to wear so the pain in the feet go away, right? And so this person was taking care of all their health problems, all their partner's health problems. And when we worked on like, okay, but how much time does that leave in your day to take care of yourself and all the other things that you need to do for both you and your partner, since your partner's not taking care of this anymore because of their health problems. So she finally, oops, I said a gender identifier. They finally stood up and were like, okay, how about you take care of this particular problem? And it was a little awkward for them. It was very uncomfortable for them. It was uncomfortable for their partner. But their partner actually eventually, after a couple days of not being happy with it, started to take care of it and actually found the solution to it within a matter of like a week. Which like they were much more capable of finding the solution for, right? Because they were actually having the problem. And so what this did is it saved everybody time. They actually found the solution. They were no longer in pain. And their partner no longer had to take care of this problem. So there is less pain in the long run. Everybody has more energy because this person is now not in pain. And the person who was originally ill is now able to actually help their partner again, and help with things. And there was a lot more freedom and a lot more energy, but it required that first awkward, no thank you. And so that can be something to keep in mind, right? How do we create true harmony in this Libra season? Not everybody's okay and nobody's yelling right now, right? Or everybody's okay and nobody's crying right now. But what actually ensures that everyone's true needs and healthy boundaries are being met, and we're each able to follow the path that we're meant to follow. And sometimes that means some cutting cords, because sometimes a person isn't able to hold harmony, right? And we can only do so much to be in a harmonious relationship with them, until they have to kind of figure out their own thing. And so we might have to cut some cords there. And sometimes people's most basic needs don't mesh, right? And so maybe you don't cut full cords, but maybe you put a little bit more space. Because when a healthy Aries steps up and is like, I really need this space, and the other healthy Aries is like, okay, and the other person's healthy Aries is like, yeah, but I need like this space. It needs to be this form and yours needs to be that form. You realize like, okay, that's not going to work in this environment. And so you either create a new environment or you go your own ways. So it's very challenging work, right? It's not just like lovey-dovey, like Venus, Libra, great, let's all just like love each other and like get over it all. We have to be able to work with both sides of that polarity, the declaring of our personal needs and then holding to a higher cosmic harmony, and also have that polarity within us where the warrior or that energy, that Aries energy, is willing to step up and be like, for the purpose of maintaining cosmic harmony, whether that have a divine aspect to it or a spiritual aspect to it, or whether it just be our relationship to nature and greater society, like we have to do these things and give this call and listen to our own call and go forward and do it. So blessings on the work that you do with Libra, and blessings on the way that you put all this together. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.